Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be flying the famous Sidewinder Low Level route. On the right hand side you'll see a SkyVector overview that is downloadable and importable into your Microsoft Flight Simulator if you want to fly the same route. I'll put a link for that as well as the planning document on the left hand side in the description below, which you can also link to. Here we are in the cockpit of the default F18. I'm setting up my HSI and my steering, so I'm selecting waypoint mode. You can see flight plan on MFD, waypoint 0 is the departure airfield and 1 is the entry point. But ensure you toggle to 1. You can see on the right hand FD I still have 0 as my waypoint, but I fix that later. Here we go, just shortening should I say, some of the sequences. You get airborne, gear flap up. I have a little bit of fun. Out of Edgeworth Air Force Base, you'll notice on the dry lake bed to the left is a massive compass rose, very famous. Looks pretty cool as you exit the area. So at this stage I'm just above the cloud. I'm cruising about 16,500 feet, or I will be shortly, inbound towards the entry point, which is near Lake Isabella. The actual entry point is known as Point Alpha, and it's the center of the west edge of the dam. So here we go. I'm not being overly precise, but I'll level off. You can see that the track pointer on my right hand MFD is the 12 o'clock, and now I'm going to set up the autopilot. So CPL waypoint will link it to the GPS route, and holding barrow altitude means it'll fly itself all the way per the flight plan. The external model of this aircraft looks brilliant. Cool, now we'll have a little look at the setup. So you can see it's pointing to the 12 o'clock. It gives you range and bearing. It also gives you time to go, which is a nice feature. So at the current speed, it'll take me 5 minutes and 15 seconds to get there. If you hit the bottom right button, the sequence button, it should draw the lines. Now there's a little bit of a bug. It won't necessarily indicate the current position to the next waypoint. It sometimes does, but you can see the route overview matches what you can see on the SkyVector map. If you haven't seen it, I've done a video on how to import GPS routes or flight plans, so be sure to check that out if you're not sure. Cool, so I've zoomed ahead. We're now going to enter into low level. The rules suggest you can enter point alpha. You should be talking on 315.9 for the low level common frequency, and the route itself goes through different points, alpha through to Mike. 2 miles either side of the center line of this route is what you should be maintaining, and initially it's always not below 200 feet up to 3,000 feet AGL. So here we are entering the first point. Now it does actually say in the special operating procedures that the first portion of the route, Alpha to Bravo, shouldn't be below 3,000 AGL. I'll show you why shortly. But this is Lake Isabella, and the scenery is pretty cool. It's not perfect, but it does look quite stunning. I flew the Mach Loop in the Hawk T1, and if you haven't seen that video yet, then please check that out. But this is like the Mach Loop's big brother. So it doesn't auto-sequence to the waypoint, so you can see there I just clicked it through to waypoint 2 and the steering changed. So the first turn, I think it's Kern Valley. There is a small airfield and a town, a settlement, so it's a noise sensitive area. That's why it suggests that you should fly at 3,000 AGL through this portion. But it's a flight sim, so we may as well do the low level. I give them a wide berth. I don't know what they're worried about. The scenery down here is pretty epic. So I'm trying to hold 420 knots as a rough speed. Remember, if you pull too many Gs in the turn, this aircraft will bleed a lot of speed. So I try and keep most of my turns less than 4G. The view outside the aircraft looks pretty cool with the river and the shadow down to the left. I love little things like that. That scenery is a little bit special. It's very cool. The livery here you see is the China Lake livery, so I could have got airborne for China Lake. It's actually closer to the entry point, but I didn't see that until I actually did the route itself. The livery is downloadable on flightsim.to, and I'll put a link for that in the description below as well. This part of the route is probably my favourite low-level portion. It starts off in the Sequoia National Forest as we head northbound, and then we cross east and get into the Death Valley National Park. And the whole route is kind of just west of Las Vegas for reference. The scenery is brilliant, as are some of these valleys. I can't get right down into the valley because the performance of the aircraft going that speed, you just wouldn't make it. So I stay slightly high and follow the general gist of the valley. I couldn't decide which video looked better, so I've kind of tried to link the in-cockpit and the external view at the same time. So as a technique, I tend to follow speed looking at my left MFD because it's nice, big and clear. In the HUD, depending on where your head is, you can't necessarily see the speed. As for the route, I could be making it up. I'm roughly trying to keep the track pointer, so on the right MFD, I'm trying to keep the little triangle to the 12 o'clock. But when I see a valley, I will obviously fly down it because that's the fun bit. So clicking through to the next waypoint. Interestingly, at external view, you hear a lot of the flaps moving. It's a lot of servo noise, which you wouldn't hear normally. Hopefully they'll change that in future. This is another favourite bit of mine. The external view looks pretty cool as we do this. So whilst we fly this, don't forget to support the channel, hit the subscribe button, stay up to date with future video releases, especially coming up to Christmas, lots of stuff to review, lots of stuff to practice and play with. But also hit that like button if you think other people might enjoy this video. I mean, Ace Combat eat your heart out. Even this view is pretty cool. I don't normally fly external view, but I certainly like looking from the outside. So I've set the rad out alert to 200 feet, and I'm sure I set that off a lot. I'm not adhering to all the procedures. I could, but where's the fun in that? I mean, the scenery is brilliant. I'd love to visit here in real life. It'd be a great place to go. Especially this ridgeline. This ridgeline must be pretty cool to watch from. Now, I'm not sure. There are a couple of locations around here that photographers do sit. I haven't managed to find out where they are. So if you know where they are, chuck that in the comment below. It'd be really interesting. I could have gone left or right. I went left here. In retrospect, maybe right would have been better. But I'm loving the texture of the ground to the left, the kind of red clay, maybe iron ore or something in the ground. Looks really cool. Might have to bring a search and rescue helicopter around here. That might be quite interesting too. Okay, so coming up to this ridge line, I'm going to ridge roll over the top. Probably illegal to go upside down, but ridge rolling is a thing. Generally up to about 120 degrees angle of bank, but here go fully inverted and down the way we go. Now I'm going to cut the video here and go to the option A, so the full Sidewinder route. You can take a left from the video I've just cut from, and then you cruise up Death Valley and take a right at the north and then head south. But here I've completely bust my 200 feet. I just fly around as fast as I can at low level, which is enjoyable to say the least. Just watch out for the pylons. The other thing I noticed whilst I was trying to squeak down the altitude, you'll notice the aircraft sometimes bumps up. Kicking up some dust, but then it bumps up. It's got an auto recovery system, which I'll come back to later. So there's a Jedi Transition. You can either do the full route, as I mentioned, or from this point, you can cut across to the east-southeast and pick up the route southbound once you cross the valley. So you'll notice here me clicking the waypoints through to waypoint 10. Course pointer comes to the right, so I'll just set up with that to the 12 o'clock and I'll set my autopilot up. So here we are, steering is correct. I'm going on the Jedi Transition here. So I put barrel altitude hold and I'll put the CPL waypoint and it'll fly itself across here. This area I believe is called Owens Lake. To the north is a small airfield called Lone Pine, not that we can use it. And to the south is restricted area Romeo 2505. Whilst remember, if you're still here, please hit that like if you're finding this useful or enjoyable, and certainly hit the subscribe to help support the channel. As the camera pans round, you can see in the background now is the valley that I skimmed across earlier, and you can head north up the route and then take a right and a right to head south. I've skipped forwards and we now come to another valley, so I'm turning off the autopilot. I'll check to the left, or I've already checked to the left to make sure no traffic's coming, and I'm just going to enter this valley and proceed south. So that is the Jedi Transition, just going from point to point without doing the full route. One thing to watch out for, if you're doing the full route, you probably want some external tanks on, which I'm not sure this model has, and the extra gas, otherwise you'll find yourself very short of it, which may be a factor later on in this video. Okay, so we're doing low level a bit. I thought, let's make it interesting. I noticed that aircraft wanted to bump up and save me from hitting the ground, so I'm going to do a little test to see how much it will save you from. So this is about 4 degrees nose down, and I'm thinking, is it going to pitch up? Probably not. Yeah, that happened. So 4 degrees nose down, no bueno. But I know it works, so let's try 2 degrees nose down. You can see, success. It is pitching up slowly, but like I say, it's based on the radar what's underneath the airplane, not on the rising ground ahead. You may have seen a slightly famous, I guess, online, the YouTube video about an F-16 pilot that G-locks. And the aircraft just spears towards the ground with him unconscious, and actually the aircraft from a 6 degrees nose down rolled wings level and pulled to save him actually, so the aircraft did its job. So I'm going to go to another ridge roll. Yes, I'm fast, 470 knots. And again, just clearing this ridge, bit of a barrel roll, and then I've got to pull up for the next ridge line. So now I'm thinking about my exit. It's coming up. My fuel's probably getting a bit tight at this stage. I'm by no means an experienced, well, I'm not an F-18 pilot, so I wouldn't know how to plan the low level for this. You see this bit's just pretty flat, so let's zoom it on. So I put the autopilot in. It has a rad alt hold function, so I was just interested to see if it did hold the rad alt. So this, if you leave the autopilot in, it will do rate 1 turns, which is pretty useless if you want to follow a low level route. I just figured, let's see what happens if I leave rad alt in, and no, I gave up on that because I just hit the hillside again. Zooming it forwards. So we're inbound waypoint 13 at this point, which is pretty much the exit before I start heading home. And zooming again. So exiting low level, the steering is in for waypoint 0, which is our departure airfield. Let's plug the burners because why wouldn't you? And I want to end with a bit of pizzazz. So we're going to go through the sound barrier. Normally you need to be above flight level 300, 30,000 feet in the United States. But again, it's a sim, so I don't quite bother with that. I keep the AB in. Note how, as I roll the correct way up, everything goes quiet, but you don't get the sonic boom. There. I'm supersonic, but you won't hear it until you go through the cone. That sound effect is brilliant. But now I heard a change in engine note. So I'm currently thinking, what's going on? Look at my nozzles. My nozzles are different. My engines are asymmetric. I reckon one's shut down. So if you get to a certain fuel, I can't remember, it's about 2,000 pounds, which is what we are, I think. One of the engines will automatically shut down to save you fuel, which is what it's doing. So all I'm doing now is thinking about keeping clear of the weather, enjoying the view again, and then positioning for a straight-in approach single engine to my departure airfield. Ordinarily, I'd set all the nav aids up, the inbound course, the localizer if there is one. If there was a course bar, I'd align that with the runway heading, because I'm not quite sure what the runway is. I'd look at the approach plates as well, so I'm guessing on the runway heading. And I'm just zooming in to see what my orientation is. I'm trying to decide which runway to use. I think I go for the short one on the right hand side, and I'll configure, but what I'll do is I'll lower the gear and I'll set the flaps manually to mid. I don't want them automatically travelling to full flap because that's too much drag single engine. Now I don't know if that's proper procedure, but generally in fast jets you don't want full flap until the landing is assured. So here we go, I'm just holding slightly fast. So on the left hand side, so the flight path marker is the circle thing with the 3 lines coming out in the middle of the HUD. The E, or the staple, to the left hand side, it's currently up near the compass heading. You can see it bouncing around closer to the flight path marker. That should be where I'm aiming for if I'm on speed. My flight path marker should be next to that if I'm on speed. So I'm keeping a little bit of speed in hand because I'm single engine. Keeping the flight path marker roughly on the threshold, roughly on a 2.5 degree glide path. Now I keep flap in the mid portion here so I don't have any change in the aerodynamics as I land, so I just land in this configuration. Not much of a flare because, hey, it's an F18. Bit squirmy. But we're down, we're safe. Probably have to answer some questions about running out of fuel, but otherwise, I enjoyed it. I hope it was useful to you to have a quick look at the Sidewinder route, a quick look at the F18 default, and a quick look at using the waypoint system. Like I say, if you need to learn how to import waypoints into the GPS system, then check out that video. Otherwise, till the next time, take care.